Adverts can make you buy beans, but they can't make you trans because trans is not a social contagion. Hello, this one is probably going to be a little bit of a rant. It's an unscripted discussion, read through, and rant over something that has been very frustrating. Yes, that I want to talk about. So just pre-warning you now, if it's not the kind of video you want to watch, I completely understand, but let's get on with it. Hey Spuds, how's it going? It's Jamie, welcome back to another video. If that's been on the channel, I don't know, but welcome either way. If this is your first video on the channel, it's a little bit different to what I normally do. This is just me wanting to talk very honestly, not scripted, not pre-planned. I just want to have a chat about something that I've seen in the news recently. By the time this video comes out, it might not be that recent anymore. I'm filming this a few days after all these news articles have been published, and basically it is the millionth thing that the transphobes have decided to boycott and get angry and appalled over due to trans visibility from a brand. This time it is Braun, a razor company. They have an advert that features a topless trans man that shows his surgical scars from top surgery. And they've just lost their over some top surgery scars, and I've lost count of the number of things this year alone. Granted, we are in end of September, but still, I've lost count of the amount of things this year alone that transphobes and bigots have boycott or thrown an uproar about just because there is some form of trans representation or visibility or inclusion. And it's honestly getting to the point where there's no jokes to be made, there's nothing new being said, and it's just really highlighting the fact that transphobic rhetoric is becoming more and more obvious that they are just hiding behind things like protect kids and protect women. They don't actually care about those things. What they actually want is to push trans people out of visibility and out of social life and just being members of society. They don't want that. They don't like seeing trans people. And that's what's highlighted by these adverts. I don't see any other explanation for it. And as a trans person myself, regardless of what my job is, but being reasonably visible, it's very frustrating to see. And I wanted to just have a rant and a chat about it and have a read through some of these articles and just call bullshit on the bullshit. Shall we get started? So this one, New York Post. Razor company Braun faces backlash for featuring trans man in ad. Honestly, that is the most ridiculous sentence. Like, how sensitive can you get for disliking an advert because it features a trans person? I really don't understand that. Also, I have not been able to find this advert anywhere. I have been able to find another Braun advert for the Series X trimmer that features the same trans man but does not show his surgery scars. So I don't know what's happened to it. Anyway, New York Post have a little video about it that we won't watch, but it just says, an ad for Braun electric razors is getting backlash for featuring a shirtless trans man with visible top surgery scars. This is Costa all over again. They cannot deal with seeing a trans person. They say transphobia isn't a fear, but then there is just this huge amount of outrage and disgust and anger at a trans person merely being in an advert, in a photograph, visible as a trans person. If you're trying to say that you're not scared or have some kind of massive aversion just to trans people, but then you have that reaction to a trans person being in an advert, then I think that you need to go and explore your feelings. Razor company Braun may be the next company to face a boycott. A backlash mounts to a resurfaced ad featuring a trans male with visible mastectomy scars. Oh yeah, that's the thing. It's like with the Costa backlash, that was a year-old advert by the time transphobes got hold of it. This one is apparently relatively old. I don't know if we'll find out specifically how old, but it is resurfaced. It's not a brand new ad campaign that's just come out, which makes it kind of hilarious. I came across this video that somebody made up. This is the kind of content I found when I was trying to find the actual advert. And so he said, Braun just did a Bud Light. Braun just did a Bud Light. Not gonna show the creator or the creator's name, but just FYI, Braun did this long before Bud Light did their thing. Gillette did this long before Bud Light. Other razor companies have included trans men either in their advertising for TV, etc., and their own YouTube channels, or through sponsoring trans men on their own social media channels. This this is not the first and will not be the last. In a Braun Series X hybrid trimmers ad posted on the bottom of the company's website. Oh, is that how I can find it? Oh my god, I've just found it. I googled this so much and I clearly just did not pay attention to that. I mean, I've not read these articles in full. I kind of skimmed them before this video because I wanted it to be a kind of genuine first-hand reaction to some of it, not a scripted thing. I just wanted to talk. And I've just found it now. Literally, you go on the website for Braun and you go on the page for this specific Series X hybrid trimmer, scroll all the way down to the bottom, scroll through some photos they have, and there is the one image of the trans guy with his scars visible. Among many, there's like 8 images here. He is shown in one. Wow, that's what they're making a fuss about. I mean, even if it was front and center, I still wouldn't understand it, but like, you have to go hunt for these things. I feel like at this point, transphobes are finding things to get angry about. Anyway, so we found it. It's because it kept saying the screenshot was taken from YouTube, so I was like, YouTube, where is this advert? But we found it. Okay. The shaving accessory is advertised as being for beard hair, body hair, and head hair. And I think we can agree that a lot of people have all those types of hair, and this razor may be useful for lots of different people. As a photo was again circulated online, ex-users slammed the company for promoting sex change operations and have begun to call for a boycott. What I don't understand is, are we going to see that same energy for other things? Like just passive representation of, God, I don't know, like any surgery. Like, oh, this model had a rhinoplasty. This model has veneers. Let's boycott the covering of healthy teeth. Yeah, I'm not against veneers. I find it ridiculous that so much energy is poured into this. The only explanation is a hatred towards trans people and an aversion towards trans people. That's what it is. They try and blame it on like surgery and influencing children and like caring for this. Not that it does that. It's just not wanting trans people to be visible. Somebody, I'm just going to cover their name, who claims to be an activist who claims he is traveling the world to expose gender ideology and why children cannot consent to medical transition, tweeted, "Braun is now celebrating the mutilation cult of gender." These people do not know the first thing about trans people, trans lives, or transitioning. Because if they did, they would realise that this isn't any kind of mutilation. There's no gender cult. There's no gender ideology. There is literally, trans people exist. There is a thing called gender dysphoria, and there is a medically advised, approved, and supported method to treating that, which is transitioning, either social and or medical, depending on the individual person. And both forms of transitioning, particularly medically transitioning, improves well-being and reduces gender dysphoria. It literally does what it's intended to do. It's not any kind of mutilation. And I think having somebody in an advert, having a grown adult man who is transgender and has his top surgery scars on display, why that leap has then gone to exposing gender ideology to children and like Braun is celebrating mutilation. Like, it's just a bit of visibility. Like, go deal with your own sensitivities, go listen to some trans people, and then maybe you won't be such an asshole. Conservative influencer also suggested the company has gone the way of Gillette and Bud Light. Oh, gone the way. So they are fussy about Gillette. I do not remember this kind of uproar over Gillette. There were some things, but the transphobes have definitely, I don't know if they've taken some kind of like caffeine to give them energy in their tirade of hate, but it's just a lot right now. 2 other companies that face backlash for their use of transgender individuals in advertisements. A psychologist who is kind of well known, but still not going to show the name. Braun is looking hard for its Budweiser moment after the beer's company stock plummeted in the wake of transgender TikToker Dylan Mulvaney announcing she was partnering with Bud Light to celebrate her first year as a woman. I feel like this is what really kicked it off. Not at all Dylan's fault. That is not what I'm suggesting whatsoever. It was incredibly shit for her, but that's what I feel like brought this conversation to the forefront for transphobes. Like, that's when they've really started jumping down the throat of any and every company that shows even the slightest hint of support to trans people. In the UK, the ad has also been slammed as shockingly immoral and is being investigated for violating Advertising Standards Authority guidelines, according to Pink News. We will read that article as well. I did hear that this has happened. I am intrigued as to what they think means that it violates advertising guidelines. Promoting the removal of healthy breast tissue is not only shockingly immoral, but against advertising standards guidance to not glamorize or trivialize cosmetic surgery. Somebody very not nice said. Showing top surgery scars is now glamorizing and trivializing cosmetic surgery. Firstly, have never seen this person have this level of energy for actual representation and visuals of cosmetic surgery. Secondly, trans-related surgeries are not cosmetic. Do you know, it would be a hell of a lot easier to get them if they were classed as cosmetic surgery, but no, it's trans people that need to have all the therapy and the years of other people making decisions as to whether we're trans enough and are okay to have these surgeries that are literally life-saving and positively life-changing and have a minuscule under 1% regret rate. But no, it's trans people's surgeries that are the problem. I'm not saying cosmetic surgery is a problem. It's just to refer to trans surgeries as cosmetic surgery is incredibly disingenuous, because it is literally not even treated like a cosmetic surgery in any way, shape or form. It's recognized as a medical treatment for gender dysphoria. It literally leads to improved well-being and lower gender dysphoria, and there is not the ease of access to it that there is for cosmetic surgery. You cannot just walk into a clinic and say, I want top surgery, and get it done. There's years of wait lists, there's years of assessments, there's multiple different people that have to sign off on this, and it's a really tricky thing to gain access to. Gross, the way that's been worded. Braun executives must have been living under a rock if they think this campaign represents inclusivity. The reality is that Braun has now written itself into a history as promoting social contagion and what will become of the most notorious medical scandals. It really won't. The social contagion thing is in reference to rapid onset gender dysphoria, which is a very poor piece of research that has been debunked by multiple sources and has absolutely no backing or evidence to support it. It was based purely off of transphobic parental report and did not include any trans people, and then they came to this conclusion that being trans was a social contagion, and it's just gone from there. It's terrible. Actually, I think companies that represented and included trans people at a time when it was incredibly difficult for trans people to just live, and where those companies faced a large amount of backlash for including trans people, they will be seen positively in years to come. They are already seen neutral to positive by a majority of people. There's just a loud minority that think that they are incredibly righteous, but they will be the ones that are shown on the wrong side of history, causing actual harm to a marginalized community within society. Something about a group of psychologists concerned about the effect of gender ideology added, once again, we find a private corporation willing to glorify irreversible surgery being performed on the healthy breasts of women in pure pursuit of profit. You're just misgendering. Like, trans men are not women. Literally, you are calling yourself a psychologist who has co-founded a group of other psychologists concerned about the effect of gender ideology, and you literally don't even respect trans people's gender. You are clearly just completely transphobic and against trans people existing and against the validity of trans people. You are not an authority to speak on this, because by having that opinion you just show yourself as knowing nothing about trans people or the trans experience, and also having zero compassion. And it's this whole healthy breasts of women. It's like there's a sacredness placed on that body part for women, and it's seen as so abhorrent to not have that anymore. And I feel like that shows a lot more about the people sharing that opinion than about the people who've had surgery. Not only does it fall down by the fact that trans men are not women, but also people are autonomous in this world, and people have all sorts of surgeries, either elective or necessary, cosmetic or not. The only time we see this energy poured into being so vehemently against a type of surgery is when it comes to trans people. The Post has reached out to Braun's parent company, Proctor Gamble, for comment. In a statement to Newsweek, a Braun spokesperson said the image is just one of hundreds on our site showing people using our products, all of which are reflective of the consumers we serve. The spokesperson added that the image is 2 years old. 2 years. It took transphobes 2 years. How I knew this happened before Bud Light is a YouTube video I could find that displayed the same trans man but just not his top surgery scars was coming up to a year old. This isn't even a new ad campaign. A spokesperson for Procter & Gamble also told the outlet, we routinely refresh and repurpose our videos and still images showing our products in use across multiple platforms, as we did with the Series X materials in 2020. So it's the 2020. Is that 3 years old then? So they definitely haven't done a Bud Light. This is something that Braun created multiple years ago and stand by recently by having it maybe like refreshed, like reposted on their site, I'm not sure, but it's right there. fascinating. I honestly just think transphobes need to find another not hateful hobby to get on with and distract themselves, because the level of misunderstanding is appalling, and we're getting to a point where all of these people that are like, I've set up this group of psychologists, I've campaigned for this and that to do with gender ideology, they're all cis, and there's a reason why they're all cis. Why is it that some people seem to be listening to cis people when it comes to trans people's lives, and then when trans people actually speak up, we're called biased and sensitive and just horrible slurs and horrible words and accusations? It just makes me very angry, which is why I'm here today making this video. I can't remember how many of these I've seen, and I've made videos on a couple of them that have been a little bit more like calm and thought out, but this one I'm just pissed off because I find the attitudes displayed by these anti-trans people just so disgusting. Like, I actually think they are vile and they are harmful. They are so hypocritical, because trans people being trans is not some ideology and it's not some cult, whereas I can think of some very ideological and culty things coming out of transphobic groups and opinions. And also, trans people are not hurting anyone. We are just living our lives, and if you view trans people as living our lives and just wanting basic human respect, equal rights, and some form of visibility within society as influencing other people, then you just show how much you do not understand about the trans experience. Before we start listening to people's opinions on trans people's lives, why don't we check that they actually know a single thing about trans people, other than the fear-mongering that they've read or created themselves through hatred and through bigotry, because that's all this is. We'll go to Pink News next, because it was mentioned by the Post. Braun razor advert under review after anti-trans backlash to transgender male model. An advert for Braun razors is under review by the Advertising Standards Authority after the company faced an anti-trans backlash for using a topless trans male model in its latest campaign. Not only have they disliked it, not only have they gone, don't really agree with this, but they've gone to social media sites, they've gone to newspapers to make horrible comments and reported it for breaking advertising standards. It depicts a grown adult who had a consensual, medically approved surgical procedure that is literally the treatment for gender dysphoria and is approved by all major medical boards as being appropriate for transgender people to access, and for some reason they think that being visible is inappropriate. A spokesperson for the ASA confirmed to Pink News that complaints had been received about the advert, which is being reviewed. I would be very interested to know what the outcome of that is. I think if it's anything other than just, probably politely, because they're a formal body, right, telling the transphobes to f*** off, then I think that would be ridiculous. As in, it would be ridiculous if it isn't telling the transphobes to f*** off. In the advert for the Series X hybrid trimmers, the model's double mastectomy scars could be seen. Some trans men and non-binary people undergo the procedure as part of their gender-affirming journey to remove breast tissue and reshape the chest. I had this surgery over 11 years ago when I was 18, and the size of the positive impact it's had on my life is indescribable. And to see people describe a surgery that transformed my life, saved my life, I honestly am grateful for every single day, and I've never even had a millisecond of regret over it or doubt that I did the right thing. To see people describe it in the way they're describing it and to be so outraged at seeing it on TV is not a lovely thing to see. I could be a lot harsher than that, but it's very uncomfortable. It doesn't make me feel any kind of way about my personal journey. It's just, I am proud of who I am, and I'm not ashamed of my scars, and I know who I am. I know why I got that surgery. I know it was the right thing for me to do, and to see people talk about it that way, they are just so hateful. According to the brand's website, which features the image of the model, the Series X is a one-tool wonder that allows users to trim, style, and shave. Honestly, they're all linking to it. I just did not notice. But the brand's inclusivity hasn't been well received by anti-trans campaigners, with somebody telling a newspaper that she found the advert shockingly immoral. I find transphobia shockingly immoral. Meanwhile, a TV presenter claimed Braun will see a drop in sales following its decision to use a trans model. Here's a tweet. Braun's advert for men's beard trimmer features a trans model with double mastectomy scars. I'm sure this celebration of brutal surgery to remove, here we go again, a woman's healthy breast breasts will go down fabulously well with Braun's male customers. Watch their sales," and then a little graph going down. I don't really think Procter & Gamble will care that much about a potential temporary dip in sales because bigots don't want to buy their razors for however long they remember. It took some other transphobes less than a year to remember they were supposed to be boycotting M&S, so let's see how long this lasts. In a debate about irresponsible advertising on the right-wing channel, somebody claimed to be physically repulsed by the advert. They were physically repulsed by a trans person's chest. That is some incredibly harsh wording and really disgusting. Physically repulsed. "This is not to be transphobic," she said. "You're saying you're physically repulsed by a trans person's body, but you're not transphobic. Oh no, I just go vom in the corner at the sight of top surgery scars, but I'm not transphobic," she said, adding that it's horrific and is gender dysphoria, which she called a mental health condition. How dumb. How do these people not feel a deep level of embarrassment? That's like if I tried to go on television and talk about how to build a computer, and I was like, well, you get the computer case, and then I think you just pour some beans in there, and that should make it work. That's the level of knowledge these people have about trans people, and about gender dysphoria, and about trans surgeries and trans lives. That is honestly how stupid they sound when they try to talk about trans people, because they know nothing. They know jack shit.
"This is not to be transphobic, adding that it's horrific and is
gender dysphoria. Do you know that the literal treatment of gender dysphoria is top surgery? That is part of it. If that is what is right for that individual to help them with their gender dysphoria, then that is part of the treatment that some people go down. Not everybody needs it, but a lot of trans masculine people do. So yes, it is gender dysphoria, but gender dysphoria cannot be treated with psychological therapy. You cannot be talked out of it. That is conversion therapy. The gender affirmative approach is the accepted model of treatment for trans people. Not every trans person medically transitions, and that is fine, but we are talking about those who do, and those who do greatly benefit from it, and I don't know how many times I can say it reduces gender dysphoria. Another anti-trans campaigner described the advert as doubly disgraceful. Doubly? Oh, it's not just singly, but it's not triply or quadruply, only doubly. Okay, how could it have been more disgraceful? People blasts Braun for using a trans model with mastectomy scars in a beard trimmer ad. This isn't some harmless fad, this is the irreversible removal of healthy parts of a woman's body for a mental health condition. Ow. Again, beans in a computer. Beans for brains. Beans is what's come to mind because there's a bean advert on the article that I'm reading. The power of advertising. Oh yeah, that's why they think everybody's going to become trans, because they saw a trans person in an advert. God. Adverts can make you buy beans, but they can't make you trans because, you know, trans is not a social contagion. Anyway, somebody replied to this. Most people weren't physically repulsed by this advert because most people aren't irrational transphobes who want to remove trans people from public. Trans people should be visible because they exist and part of society. Bigotry, however, shouldn't be. It's these people that have no authority to speak on a subject, pretending like they have authority and pretending like everybody else agrees with them. It's manipulative. And this is why there are a still minority, but a larger number of people who are kind of softly transphobic. They're not like hateful like this person, but they do believe in the whole rhetoric of like protecting children and protecting trans women and social contagion and stuff like that, because these people go online and go on TV and pretend to know what they're talking about. And trans people are given so little space and so little airtime, let alone airtime by themselves without it being turned into a debate. Just trans people being able to go on TV and have a voice for themselves, not to sit there and fight against something, but just speak about their experiences and who they are, rather than having to constantly defend themselves. Despite the negativity surrounding the advert, many people have aired their support for it, with one taking to X, formerly Twitter, to respond to the person who was physically repulsed. Trans people should be visible because they exist and are part of our society, they wrote. We applaud Braun for their inclusive casting. Che Brown, the operations director at pro-trans organisation Transactual, told Pink News that he can't understand why anyone would be offended. Bigotry. I don't understand it, but like it is literally just being scared and having an aversion to something that you don't understand and don't want to understand, and that's what these people are doing. It's a man advertising a shaving product. Shirtless men doing this are nothing new, he said. said. Exactly. Why is it such an issue? Also, can I just point out that cis men can have gynecomastia and can have top surgery, and actually the method of top surgery, like double incision, periareolar keyhole, they were developed for cis men with gynecomastia. I know of cis men who have had this surgery and have the same scars as me. But even if that didn't happen, it's still not right to hate on trans people for doing it. I just want to point out that it's not just a trans thing that's done, and these cis men that have gynecomastia technically have healthy breast tissue. There's nothing wrong with it, it just makes them uncomfortable, so they have what would be classed as a gender-affirming surgery, except they don't have to go through all of the hoops that trans men and trans masculine people have to go through to have the same procedure. Even phalloplasty was developed for cis men who lost their penises in accidents. Just as the trans are shocked that trans men drink coffee, trans men shave, and not just men shave as well. Anybody can buy these products. Like, it's just cannot get my head round the level of ridiculousness from transphobes. We applaud Braun for their inclusive casting by featuring a trans man in their advertising. They're reflecting the fact that some trans men and non-binary people and trans women use their products. And that's what the Braun spokesperson said, right? They said, the image is just one of hundreds on our site showing people using our products, all of which are reflective of the consumers we serve. They are literally advertising to the people that buy their razors. I don't think that they're going to go broke over this. Most people wouldn't know that why can I not say masculinizing? Most people wouldn't know what masculinizing mastectomy scars were unless they knew a trans person. As for turning people trans, what nonsense. Utter bullshit. I've always enjoyed chocolate, but despite years of watching milk tray ads, I've never had an urge to ski down a mountainside at midnight to deliver a box of chocolates to anyone, no matter how much I fancied them. Also, I was brought up being taught that the only way was cis and straight. And cis wasn't even discussed as a thing, trans wasn't even discussed as a thing. Your gender was just assumed to be the same that you were assigned at birth, and you were assumed to be straight, and that is all that you were taught about and told about. It was all boy meets girl, they grow up, they fall in love, they have babies, woohoo. That was it. I turned out neither cis nor straight. So please tell me how, despite years of social conditioning and constantly being told that I was wrong for the way I felt, and never being given the language for it as a child and having to wait until I stumbled across it at 16, tell me why I still turned out trans. I was actively pushed by society and by just what the world was telling me to not be trans. I go back to the example of the left-handedness graph here. It's like, as it became less stigmatized, the number of left-handed people rose. There was a correlation. And we're seeing that same correlation now. And what transphobes are claiming is a causational effect that trans people are increasing because an increase in visibility is making more people trans, as in like actually making them trans. But the thing they forget is that people are born trans, and the increase in the number of trans people isn't actually an increase in the number of trans people. It's an increase in the number of trans people who have been given the language to know that they are trans. They were always trans, and now they know it. It's like learning about transness won't make somebody trans, but it will help someone who is already trans understand what they're feeling and what they're going through. It's important for companies to reflect their whole consumer base because that's part of building an inclusive society, Braun added. I honestly feel like, I don't know how to describe it, it's such a jarring difference reading the hatred towards this advert and then just reading something from somebody who has a rational and compassionate understanding perspective on the trans community and actually knows something about the trans community. It's like a breath of fresh air. Reading all of the hatred shit just is disgusting. That's the other reason I went to a Pink News article after the first one, because I think we needed a palate cleanser and to remind ourselves that the whole world isn't hateful. It's a loud and unfortunately relatively powerful minority who will end up being on the wrong side of history. It's just unfortunate that it's causing a lot of shit right now. Trans journalist India Willoughby took to X to say that the procedure that anti-trans campaigners are complaining about has made the man's life infinitely better, and there's nothing wrong with trans people being shown in adverts. Precisely. The same surgical procedure, I have the same scars as that model. It made my life infinitely better. And just to piss off any transphobes watching that may also be physically repulsed by a trans person's body, here is me with my top surgery scars. on show. I hope you enjoyed that. Another person congratulated Braun and Costa Coffee, which also faced a backlash following the use of a cartoon of a trans man in its branding, for standing up for trans people. It is so important, and it's so important that when these backlashes happen, brands stand by their inclusion of trans people. That is part of how we're going to make progress, is showing people who are just at the end of the day hateful bullies who've unfortunately been given TV slots, to show them that their words fall on deaf ears when it comes to the people that make decisions, and that trans people will continue to be uplifted and represented by these brands and by other people in society who actually are not assholes. One flagged the bias in the majority of the national media's reports, with only anti-trans pundits being asked to share their views about the advert. Mainstream media typically is incredibly shit towards trans people. That's why we're not seeing an article going, Braun resurfaces inclusive advert showing trans man top surgery scars, and then we hear about from the trans man and his perspective taking part and how he feels about the visibility, and we hear from other trans people and how and what that means to them, and we don't hear that side of it, but there is that side of it. There is the heartwarming, wholesome side where adverts like this are making a real positive impact, and the positive impact they're making is for a significantly larger group of people than these hateful bigots. But it's these hateful bigots that are given the platform, and they are made to seem like they have the majority opinion when they don't. The Braun advert makes no difference to you, but makes a big difference to a trans man. It shows he's visible and accepted. Why would you want him to stay in the shadows? Why is he less of a person than you are? Why do they want that? Why do they think that? That is what it feels like. It really feels like it's boiling down to, we want trans people to stay hidden. We don't think trans people deserve to live lives, like public lives, and be visible as trans people. And it's like, who made you the authority on that? Nobody. You have no right to say that. You have no right to push other people into having that opinion, especially not for a group of people that you've not even taken the time to learn anything about, aside from reading within your extremely bigoted, hateful echo chamber that is just feeding into your own narrative because that's all you want to believe in. The Braun controversy follows another razor company, Harry's, being subjected to a transphobic backlash for working with transgender influencer Luke Wesley Pearson in June 2022, while during Pride Month a number of other brands were attacked for supporting the LGBTQ+ community. So is Harry's, Gillette, Braun, feel like somewhere else has, or one of those has done it again? I don't remember. What I hate the thought of is these kind of backlashes putting brands off including trans people in that advertising, and putting brands off making trans people visible and representing trans people. I also hope it doesn't put trans people off from taking part in these campaigns. I would respect why some people would choose not to, especially with the negativity at the minute. I feel like we still need to have that level of visibility and representation. Okay, now let's go to the one, the reason why, by the way, that I don't name the people with the transphobic views is because they've already been given these platforms that they are undeserving of and that they use for incredibly negative and hateful things, and my platform is not for them. I am not here to show their faces, I'm not here to show their names, but I will tell you what they've said and why what they've said is wrong, but I have no intention on uplifting their profiles any further through my platform. So I'm not even going to name the site that this is on because it is related to one of them, so we're not going to do the title of it either, and just say this person has slammed grooming brand Braun for an advert promoting a topless model with what appears to be double mastectomy surgery scars. This is a person who was physically repulsed. They said, I was physically repulsed when I saw this advert. I'm sure most people would be. That is a very large amount of projection going on there, actually, and is incorrect, because really what the stats show is a majority of people are accepting to neutral of the trans community, and more people are positive in their thoughts towards the trans community than they are negative. And I feel like making a statement like I'm sure most people would be is almost like saying,
and you should be too. I am repulsed by this thing, and so should you.
It just feels so uncomfortable because it's making a statement that they can't possibly know if there's any truth behind it. Then they asked the other person, do you think that the average man buying a razor from Braun or anyone else wants a woman who has had a surgery to move her breasts and is claiming now taking puberty? What does that mean? That question was a hot mess, just like their whole opinion. Then it's putting another assumption on people and saying like, yes, the average man will not want to buy this razor now that there has been one non-trans man appearing in an advert. Again, this question is another assumption and also just shows that this person's opinion boiled down to nothing but transphobia because they cannot even show the trans man the basic respect of gendering him correctly. That is a man who has had surgery to remove his breasts in what is found to be the correct procedure for trans men. Not every trans man. Oh God, these people. And then the question was responded back going, definitely not.
No cis man will ever buy a Braun razor.
This particular campaign was doubly disgraceful because they're trying to undermine reality, sell us an idea that this individual is a man when it's not us, it's a woman. Also, now we're referring to a trans man saying it's. How lovely. The only reason that this female model needs to shave this beard at all is because they've been pumped full of male hormones. Oh, so this person can use gender neutral pronouns then. They're saying the trans man is not a man and referring to them as a female model, but then using gender neutral pronouns and being like, shave this beard. Not even their beard or his beard or her beard, just this beard. Right, trans men and men feel like maybe we need a reminder, and that is a big fact that these people are lacking from their lives. Like we've already read, this advert is not recent. This was first created 2 years ago. A video was posted on Braun's YouTube depicting the same trans model a year ago. People are still buying Braun razors. The only reason anybody's going to have an issue is because other people have had an issue with it. They're trying to say the only reason that the trans guy needs to shave is because he's taken testosterone. It's like, no shit. But also you saying that like cis women who want to shave their body hair shouldn't? Are you saying that cis women with PCOS shouldn't be represented in shaving commercials ever, or represented at all, or that it's incorrect for them to want to shave? What's the big shocker that a trans guy taking testosterone needs to shave? What is the point being made there? That's not the only reason why people would ever need to shave. They're glorifying this type of surgery. Clearly glorifying it. Wow. Because the trans man was given this extra special appearance, and there was even a note along the bottom of the image saying, now you've seen this image, this is such an amazing surgery to get. Everybody should do it. Come on. What the heck are they on about? And also, if we look at the news reporting on it, like I said, we're not seeing the positive representation. We're not seeing the truth behind the good that these kind of adverts do. And it's not influencing, it's not glorifying, it's just showing other trans people that you deserve to be seen in this world, and you deserve to be part of this world, and you deserve to live your life and be who you are. And here you are represented in a shaving advert very passively. Ta-da. Like, we're not seeing that, and that's what this is really doing. There's no influencing going on, aside from maybe to buy a razor that actually looks quite good. I mean, I now want to buy one of these razors because of all of this shit. I do have a Braun trimmer actually, but what we're seeing from a majority of the news reporting on this is the negativity, is the outrage. It's like when transphobes sit there going,
we're being silenced, we're called transphobes and we're not allowed to share our opinion. Oh, look at me on a national television stage sharing my transphobia. How silenced I am.
That's how they come across. It was also clarified, again, we read this before, didn't we? This is not to be transphobic or hatred. This is gender dysphoria. It used to be treated as what it is, which is a mental health condition, treated with respect and kindness and sympathy, but not celebrated. What does that mean?
What does it mean? What does it mean?
Medical transition, top surgery, hormone replacement therapy has been used to treat gender dysphoria for decades. I'm 29 and even I am over a decade post top surgery and on hormones. When I first started, it's something that had been done and accepted for decades. We've seen more and more of this pushing out of the conversion therapy because just like with gay conversion therapy, it does not work for trans people, it just causes harm. But the whole like treated with respect and kindness and sympathy, is she talking about the gender affirmative approach, or is she saying that conversion therapy is respectful, kind and sympathetic but not celebrated? I don't understand how just having a passive appearance from a trans man, shirtless, as lots of men are in shaving adverts, how is that a celebration? It's just inclusion. We have another statement. See, all the people that are having voices on this, transphobes. Why? Why cisgender transphobic people are the people being given platforms about trans inclusion and trans people's lives? Suspicious. Anyway, somebody who's quite well known as being transphobic called Braun's advert just gross. How profound. Just Gross. They said the campaign was a direct example of brands glorifying women's mastectomy scars for capital gain. They are parroting the same thing as each other. Literally, almost word for word, like 4 different anti-trans people talking at 4 different points have said the same identical thing. It's wrong every single time it's said. Saying it more doesn't make it correct. Multiple people saying it doesn't make it correct. It's not glorifying, it's just representing. It's just showing that this is a way of being human. It's not showing women's mastectomy scars, it's showing a trans man's scars, and it's not for capital gain. Clearly, the brand has risked a boycott from the phobes. Where is the capital gain? What do they think it is for? Capital gain, or they've destroyed themselves? Because they're simultaneously saying this is done to profit off of glorifying this thing we don't agree with, but also at the same time we're going to boycott them and it's going to be bad for them financially. Like, so what do you think it is? A capital gain or a financial hit? What do they think about the visibility of any type of scar? What about cis women who have had to have mastectomies? What about cis men who have had double mastectomies? What about any type of person, cis, trans, non-binary, man, woman, non-binary, like whatever, whoever, what about their surgical scars? Is showing surgical scars in any way, shape or form glorifying now and wrong? Because if you're gonna have this same energy, don't be a hypocrite. They continued, we've commodified women's bodies for a really long time and now the choice for young women is OnlyFans on one extreme or cutting your breasts off on the other, and either way you're jumping into a pit of misogyny. I mean, I actually think the transphobic opinion on trans men is steeped in misogyny because it's based in this sense of, oh, these poor young girls have been convinced into gaining male privilege and doing this to their bodies. It's almost like making women out as not being autonomous and not having the ability to know themselves. Like, it sounds really shitty towards women, the transphobic discussions around trans men, but it's the only way they can talk about trans men. Even then, it's a bit sketchy to include trans men in their discussions because it just completely knocks away the arguments against trans women. There's women up and down this country who have probably had to have double mastectomies in the last few months because it's their only way of actually making it to the next year. And for this to be celebrated and lauded by Braun, I think is despicable. But they're very different things. They're both a form of medical treatment for different issues, and nobody is saying in any way that this shits on or makes fun of or is negative towards cis women who have had double mastectomies. You've created that narrative. A final bit from this article I'm going to read is, it just does seem to be really backward thinking. Are you talking about your own thinking? Because that's the only thing backwards here. Will men be more persuaded to buy Braun when it comes to their next purchase when they're standing in the supermarket? Trans men might be, and clearly cis men haven't been put off in the last 2 years, have they? Then there's just a little bit from this one. Braun razor ad depiction of trans man sparks outrage. Braun is receiving backlash for running a commercial in the United Kingdom showing a transgender man with surgical scars. The bit I want to read from this is, they also cite, they being anti-trans campaigners as they're called on this site, cite transgender visibility itself as problematic. Just trans people being visible is problematic. Based on the belief that transgender identity is a mental illness and could be spread via social contagion. I mean, that would be some magic right there if it could spread through social contagion. Jesus Christ. And this like reliance on calling it a mental illness, that's just how it's categorized so trans people can actually get medical treatment. It's not something that can be treated with talking therapy or like, because that is literally just conversion therapy. It's considered an illness at all so that trans people can have access to medical treatment and actually be relieved of symptoms of gender dysphoria and live their lives, you know? It's kind of important for trans people to have access to healthcare. Or the idea that merely acknowledging the existence of transgender identity will encourage others to identify as transgender. Biggest pile of bullshit ever. That is literally a false statement made off the back of a debunked piece of research. As I mentioned earlier in this video, rapid onset gender dysphoria is not real. I will put a link down in the description box to a whole video I made that breaks down the research and the lack of research that has been done since that in any way supports the first piece of research, but the multiple pieces of research that literally show that that first piece was not only done poorly, but just completely incorrect in its conclusions. So I would definitely recommend watching that if you want to learn more about the damage caused by the paper on rapid onset gender dysphoria and how much that's hurt the trans trans community. It's overtaken, I think, the hurt caused by the desistance myth, which I'm also going to be making a video on soon. I want to end this on an article in LGBTQ Nation called Transphobes Freak Over Trans Man Appearing in Braun Razor Ad. Why the outrage? Let's not pretend that it has anything to do with mastectomy scars, which offers a rational, sensible perspective on this whole bullshit. So, transphobes are blasting the razor company Braun for its ad featuring a trans man who shaves while shirtless with visible mastectomy scars on his chest. British critics say the ad violates regional advertising standards by glamorizing cosmetic surgery, but their complaints are targeting a rare instance of trans visibility in media. An ad for Braun Series X Hybrid shows a shirtless trans man with mastectomy scars. Then it's just the bit where the person who, I believe, forefronted this complaint to advertising standards agencies said that promoting removal of healthy breast tissue is shockingly immoral, against advertising standards, blah 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 blah. However, gender-affirming surgeries for adults are considered safe, effective, and essential for transgender individuals, according to most major US medical associations. That is, the surgeries aren't cosmetic, medical professionals consider them life-saving, and so do the trans people who get them, and they are the people we should be listening to in this situation. But the ad merely presents the body of an actual trans man following a gender-affirming surgery. The procedure is used to resolve gender dysphoria and is typically conducted only after months or years of therapy and consultation with medical professionals so that patients understand the procedure's effects and risks. It's also worth noting that while anti-trans activists in the US have pushed bans on gender-affirming surgeries for minors, even though such surgeries are almost never conducted on minors, and certainly no children, the youngest it's done is like older teen years, the man in the commercial is an adult. As such, the critics are really complaining that the commercial features a trans male adult because such adults, according to them, should be considered unhealthy and hidden away from public view. The transphobes are really showing themselves as being utterly vile human beings. An estimated 1.6% of US adults are transgender. That's an estimated 5.4 million individuals. It's unclear what percentage of trans people identify as trans men, but the number could reach into the millions, representing a sizable potential market of trans men who may use razors for their personal grooming. And I, for one, the next time I need a razor, I will buy one that has an inclusive marketing campaign. Maybe Braun, maybe Gillette. I don't know. If the fake concern over male mastectomy scars sounds familiar, it could be because British transphobes had a similar reaction to the Costa advert. Absolutely ridiculous. So a Twitter user wrote, "Trans men shave. Braun sells shaving products. Why the outrage? Let's not pretend that it has anything to do with mastectomy scars. It is 100% about inclusion of trans people in the public space, and it is 100% transphobic. There is no ifs, buts, or doubts that this is just transphobia. Like, a transphobe's really harmed by the fact that trans men shave and exist. No, they're not." And then in 2019, the shaving company Gillette published an ad showing a proud black father teaching his young trans son Samson how to shave. In the ad, the young man says, "I was always trying to figure out what kind of man I want to become. I went into my transition just wanting to be happy. It's not just me transitioning, it's everyone around me transitioning." Overall, the ad polled well with audiences. When there is not this hateful, disgusting, non-stop transphobia going on, here are some graphs to show the rise of negative trans-related articles posted in 2 British newspapers over the years, compared to just the year before, is horrendously scary. And this is why we are seeing an increase in transphobia and people being anti-trans. It's still the minority, but there is an increase. Everything that outraged by is just fake, and it's honestly just ridiculous, and it is a bunch of, it's hate built upon lies. And you go back 4 years ago and ad that very prominently, and more prominently than Braun, featured a trans man, polled positively with audiences. I still feel like if you put the Braun one out to the general population, it would poll generally positively, more positively than negatively. With Gillette, we did not see this massive outcry. There was some negativity, but not on the scale it is at the minute. Something needs to change, because this is exhausting for trans people. I honestly just wish that people would realise that a lot of the information that they're getting from mainstream media about trans people is from bigoted cis people who don't actually know anything about the trans community. And at the end of the day, accept trans people or not, they don't affect your lives, and all trans people are wanting is the minimal amount of representation and inclusion, access to the medically approved healthcare that we deserve to have access to, and just to get on with our lives. And for people to understand that us living our lives and being true to ourselves is not hurting anybody else. Being trans is not something you can catch. It is not a social contagion. So more visibility would not lead to more trans people. Thank you for sticking with me through this. I hope you liked my discussion around this. If you did like this kind of video, I can make more on them. I have a lot that I could chat about in terms of being trans and transphobia. And I will come to positive things as well. I wanted to end this on a positive, and I wanted to say that overall we need to see more inclusion. We need to see more brands like Braun going, yes, we will include trans people because trans people are members of society that deserve to be included and visible and represented. And they are members of society who drink coffee and shave and drink beer and buy clothes. And so why not have them in adverts sometimes? Stop listening to the bigots, listen to the trans people. Leave your comments down below, let me know what you think. Think about giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing if you want to, but no pressure. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.